Hello students, I am Rituja Patil, a faculty from KLBCA College Nipani. So in my last video we saw regarding the users of the DBMS system. So in this video, I will be talking regarding the advantages of using the databases. Okay, the first advantage of using the database is controlling redundancy in data storage and in development and maintenance efforts. See, what happened is in traditional software development utilizing file processing, every user group maintains its own files. Each and every user group were maintaining their own files for handling its data processing applications. Say, for example, consider the university database. Okay, consider the university database. There, two groups of user might be the one group may be the course registration personnel, and another group may be the accounting office. Okay, so consider one university database. There one group of users may be the course registration personnel, and another group of users say accounting officer. So in the traditional approach, each user group, what it does is independently, they are going to independently keep files regarding the students. Okay, so course registration personnel will also have his own files, and even the accounting officer will also have his own files regarding the students. The accounting office keeps data on registration and its related billing information, right? Whereas what about the register office, it keeps track of student, their courses, which course they are into, and what are their grades. Okay, so other groups may further someone else, if teacher wants the data, even that teacher also keeps record of the students. So it is nothing but simply duplicate of the files. So it's nothing but if other groups may further the duplicate the sum or all the same data which is already there in these two files. Okay, it is simply waste of time, waste of work, keeping the same data at two or more places. That is nothing but the redundancy. That is what we call it as. That is keeping the same data at two or three places only, we call it as a redundancy. That is duplicacy of the data. Okay, now this redundancy in storing the same data multiple times, if we are going to store the same data multiple times, what it does, it creates some problems. It is going to create some problems. Say first problem is, so there is the need to perform the single logical update. Assume that we want to perform one updation regarding the student. Okay, entering the data on a new student multiple times. So if any new student comes and he takes the admission, then his data has to be written three times separately, one on the register personnel file, and another in the account officer file, and another is with the each and every faculties, right? So multiple times we are going to write the same student data again and again. Leave about new student, if any one student changes his phone number, or if any other changes are being done in his database, so that also has to be reflected in all the three or more files wherever his information is being stored there. Okay, so this simply leads to duplication of efforts. Simply it's going to be, it leads to the duplication of efforts, right? Keeping the same information at multiple times again and again and again. The information is same itself, the only thing is we are going to keep it multiple times by the multiple people, different people, group of people. That's one thing. And the second is storage space is also wasted there. We are going to waste their storage space also when the same data is stored repeatedly again and again. We are going to store the same data. Okay, so this problem may be a serious issue for the large databases. Already we are lacking in storage space, right? There are so many companies which are struggling to get the storages, struggling to deal with the problems of the storages. All right, so if we are going to keep the same data again and again, then it's simply that we are wasting the time, as well as the storage. Yes, and the third one is files that represent the same data may become inconsistent. Now, what is this inconsistent? What does mean by inconsistent? See, one student is there. his name was assume that his last name was mistaken when we were writing at the first time. Then he comes later on and he tells that okay, this is mistaken, correct my last name. That is his surname he wants to correct. Then what has to happen there, that updation has to take place in all the records, in all the files, wherever his information is there, in all those places, in all those files it has to take place. If the that person record or the data is present in, say, assume 2 files, or if it is present in the 3 different files or more than 3 files, so each and everywhere we have to go and manually do the updation there. Okay, suppose if the date of birth of the student was initially we entered wrong, it was erroneous, and then later on he comes and he wants to update his date of birth, then that is simply going to create the inconsistency, because one file if you change the student data, that has to be updated, means manually that person has to go and update in all different files. So if register personnel updates the data and office clerk will not update, then what happens, it is nothing but the simply inconsistency, data is not matching there. So in all the files he will be having the same different data for the one student, so that is what we call inconsistency, right? So these are all the disadvantages of the traditional file system. That is what, simply a wastage of time, simply the effort was more there, and inconsistency of a data was there. So these were the three main um, disadvantages of traditional file systems. So in the database approach, the views of different users groups are integrated during the database design itself. Okay, when we are designing the databases, so everything will be integrated, and database design should be such a way that stores each logical data item at one place, say student's name and his date of birth, everything stored at one place only, and from that place only the data will be accessed uh, for different users. If any updation takes place, that will be done in the database itself, and that updation will be reflected, that updation will be reflected in all the users databases, because they are using the same database itself, right? So that disadvantages, those three disadvantages, which are those three, simply it's effort, wastage of efforts was there, everybody has to keep the each student information more than one time, and then wastage of storage was there, and one more disadvantage was data inconsistency. So since these three were the disadvantages of traditional file system with respect to the redundancy of a data, so this all things are overcome, these all things have overcome in the today's DBMS systems, that is in today's database management system. So that is the first advantage. Today's databases are controlling the redundancy in the data storage and in even the development. So maintenance efforts are less there, because if you do updation at one place regarding one data, that will get updated in wherever the data is there, wherever the related data is there regarding that data, it will automatically get updated. So yes, here we are having the consistency of the data as well. Okay, now the second one is sharing of data among multiple users. Second one is sharing of data among multiple users. Yes, databases are there. For example, I can take here sharing of data. We have a Facebook, right? We have a Facebook account. facebook in turn is having Facebook in turn is having such a huge database. See, with respect to each and every person, even if only my account, how much data I have, how much information I have stored on a Facebook, do we think that that data is available on our phone? No, that is not available in our phone, that is already there in the, that will be stored in the Facebook database. So whenever we log into that account, we are able to view it, just we are able to view it and nothing else. If we want to download, if that facility is provided for that particular thing, then we can download, otherwise no, right? So means what? Sharing of data among multiple users should be there depending upon the interest of the users, in which data the user is interested. If I am interested in only my account, then I can view only my account. If you people are interested in your account, yes, you will be interested in your account, right? You only you can view your data. Okay, that is what the sharing of data among multiple users. Even if such a database is there, programmers are there, if they want to use the same data for their programming purpose or any research they want to do, there are databases available. The same databases can be provided for those programmers as well. Okay, so a database should be in such a way that it should be shareable among multiple users. If we are not having that sharing facility, then the system is of no use. Then it's of no use having the database systems. Okay, database systems should be developed in such a way that the data should be shareable among multiple users. And yes, today's database management systems are providing that facility. Now we are able to share the same database among multiple users. Now, the third advantage is restricting unauthorized access to data. Now we know what is unauthorized data. Means the date unauthorized access means the person who are not given any authority to access that data, he cannot access that data. So that facility is there in today's databases. So they are restricting the unauthorized access, means those people who are not having the authority or who are not having the permission to access a particular data, they are not allowed to do it. Okay, say when multiple users share a large database, when this facility is there, so it is likely that most of the users will not be authorized to access all the information. Yes, database is shared among multiple users. It doesn't mean that, yes, Facebook database is shared among multiple users. It doesn't mean that I am given the authority to access your account, or vice versa. See, you are given the authority to access my account. No, it's not the case, right? But the database is same, only that's the Facebook database that is being shared among us. But we are not given access to we are not given authority or the permission to access all the data, right? We are not given that permission. Say for example the financial data, one more example we can say the financial data. Okay, the financial data is usually considered as the confidential, right? And only the authorized persons are allowed to access such data. Only the authorized persons are allowed to access such data. If you consider even the banks, or even see some LICs, some insurance companies, right? So only the authorized persons are able to access that data and allowed to access the data. And even in addition to them, some users may only permitted to retrieve the data. They are not allowed to do any modifications. They are allowed to retrieve the data, whereas some other users are allowed to retrieve also, in the sense they can view also, and even they can update the data also. Okay, so hence the type of access operation means whether they retrieval, whether they can only view the data, or whether they can update the data, it that also should be considered, that also should be controlled. It's not only that authority means the only people who can view it. It's about even the viewing, that is retrieval, or accessing, in the sense any updation permission is given for that particular user or no, or that particular person or no. So that also has to be controlled there. Okay, so typically we can say users or a group of users are given the account number, and they will be protected by the passwords usually, and which they can use to gain access to the databases, right? So for example, even the Facebook only we can take, we are being given user ID is there for us. Yes, we are all having the different user IDs, and we have the passwords. We have the different passwords to our accounts. Each and every user is having the different passwords. So if I want to access my account in the Facebook, so what I need to do, I need to log in into my account with the particular user ID and with the password. If it matches with the already stored user IDs and password, means what already stored in the sense, so when we were asking for the permission, that time only we have given those user IDs and passwords, right? So if that is been given authorization authority for us, next time when we log in, if that matches, then only I can log in into my account and then I can see my account details. Otherwise I will not be allowed, I am not permitted to view my account details, right? Now a DBMS, that is a database management system, it should also provide a security and authorization subsystems as well. Not only the authorization, it should also provide me the security also. Okay, so which the database administrator, right, he uses to create the accounts and to specify the account restrictions. So I am having the account, it doesn't mean that I can view all the data of that particular company. No, it's not like that. So how much data can be shown for us? Only that much should be shown for us. So those restrictions has to be taken into account. Okay, then these DBMS systems, today the DBMS systems are able to enforce those restrictions automatically. Okay, they are able to enforce those restrictions automatically. So this is regarding the restricting unauthorized access to data. Means if I am not authorized to access the data, means if I am not permitted to access my data, then I cannot access it. Then I cannot access it. If and only if I can access my data, that is if and only if I am authorized, if I having the permission to access it. That to which permission? That to which type of permission? Whether I have a permission to just to view that data, or whether I am given permission to update also. So that also has to be controlled, and today's DBMS systems are able to do it properly. Okay, so they are able to restrict the authorization to access the data, and they are also able to give the authorization to access the data, who can access the data and who cannot access the data, and which type of data can be accessed by different group of peoples. Okay, so those all things will be carried out by the database administrator. Okay, so this is the third advantage of using the today's DBMS. Now next we are having persistent storage providing persistent storage for program objects. The fourth advantage of using the databases is that providing the persistent storage for program objects. See, databases can be used to provide the persistent storage for program objects and even the data structures. So this is one of the main reason for the object-oriented databases, uh, for object-oriented database systems. Say, okay, the programming languages typically have the complex data structures. Of course, programming languages are not having the simpler one, since we are able to do multiple and complex operations. In the sense, they will be having the complex structures associated with them, such as say record types in the Pascal, or even we are having the definition for the class in C++, Java, C Sharp. The values of the program variables or say objects, they are discarded once the program terminates. So that's the basic thing regarding the programming. So whenever we create the variable, and we assign some value, we execute the program, right? So after execution and after the termination of the program, whatever memory was allocated for those variables and the values which we have stored in those variables, that will also go. Okay, until and unless the programmer explicitly stores them in some separate permanent file. If we are using the file operations and storing the values for those variables, then only the data will remain in those files, otherwise it will not remain in those variables. So as soon as we terminate the execution, even the data will also go, that will not be there, right? So externally, explicitly user has to store them in the user has to store them in another file, then only it will be stored, otherwise no, right? And whatever we store in the different files, which are often involved in converting these complex structures into the format which should be suitable for the storage, which should be suitable for even the file storage. Okay, and when the need arises and when there is a need to read this data once more, the programmer must convert the files. uh, the programmer must convert them from the file format to the programming. Okay, when we are storing, that time we have converted them from the programming format to the file storage format. Okay, and when we want to retrieve them, that time we need to convert them from the file storage formats to again into the programming, because we are reading it, right? Again we need to convert it into the program variable or the object structure format. Okay, so the object oriented database systems are compatible with the programming languages, say C++ and Java, and the DBMS software automatically performs any necessary conversions. Here we need not to use any programming language, or we need not to write any code for such a conversions, that is file storing in one storage media and accessing them. We need not to write any code for it. So database system itself, that is the DBMS software itself, automatically manages these necessary conversions. Okay, so therefore a complex objects in C++ that can be stored permanently in the object oriented DBMSs. Such an object that is said to be what? Persistence. Why it is called persistence? Because it survives the termination of the program execution. In the sense, even after termination of the program also, that data will remain, means the data will remain in that particular storage and we can access it. Okay, so the persistent storage of program objects and even the data structures, that is very important. Okay, why? Because we need to have a storage for the data. If we are not being given the storage, then it's of no use. So the today's database systems are able to provide the persistent storage. They are able to provide the persistent storage for the program objects. For what? For the program objects. So this is regarding the fourth advantage. And now we are having another other advantage, that is providing storage structures for efficient query processing. Now see, database systems, of course, they must provide the capability for efficiently executing the queries, and even if we want to do any updation in the database, that should also be done efficiently, right? Now because the database is typically stored where? That is typically stored on the disks. The DBMS must provide specialized data structures and even the search techniques to speed up the disk searches for the desired records. See what happens where the database is stored. Database is usually stored on the disk, that is on some other storage medium, right? Now if I want to access the data, or if I want to store the data, the speed must be more there. I mean, it should be fast. It should have the fast search techniques. If you want to retrieve some data, fast search technique should be there. Okay, see, auxiliary files called as indexes are used for this purpose usually. So indexes are typically, how they were used, means they were based on what? They were based on the tree data structures, or even we can say hash data structures that are suitable for modified for disk searches. So it depends upon the search, it depends upon the type of a search. Different algorithms are being used, different which type of disk we have used, and what is the format of the data that we are storing. It depends on that we can use the search techniques. So there are so many search techniques are there, it can be used. Okay, and in order to process the database records, if you want to process the database records needed by a particular query, those records must be copied from the disk to the main memory, right? Those records must be uh, copied from disk to main memory. Why? Because any operations will not take directly on the disk. First we have to bring them into the main memory, otherwise it's not possible, right? So therefore what happens, the database has the buffering, or we can say the caching modules. database has even the buffering and the cache modules also, which maintains the part of the database in the main memory buffers for the processing purpose. Those buffers and caches are what? They are the temporary storage. They are the temporary storage spaces where we can bring a part of the database in the main memory. Of course, the database will be huge enough, it will be large enough. Sometimes it may not possible for us to bring the complete database into the main memory. So that time what we will do, we will bring the part of the database to the main memory, and the data which we required frequently and which we are operating frequently on which data, that data will be kept in a buffer, or we can say in the cache. So in general, the operating system, usually the operating system is responsible for this disk to memory buffering, or say memory to disk. Okay, however, because the data buffering is crucial to the DBMS management system performance, so that's why most of the operating systems will take care of it. But even the database systems are also having their own buffers as well. Now the query processing and optimization module, even the DBMSs will also be having the query processing and the optimization modules, right? Because whatever we do, in a sense, whatever information we want from the database, what we will do, we will fire it in the form of query only, right? So that is the query processing and the optimization module of the DBMS, that is responsible for choosing an efficient query execution plan. So how should I execute the query? And for each query, based on the existing storage structures, whatever is the storage structure is existing, based on that storage structure, what is the execution plan that I have to consider? That is the work of DBMS. DBMS is query processing and optimization module. Okay, then the choice of which indexes to create and maintain, that is the part of physical database design and tuning. So this is regarding the persistent storage structure for efficient query processing. So today's DBMS systems are providing the persistent storage structures. So depending upon the type of data we are storing, it is providing the persistent storage, means a permanent storage, and it is providing the different access techniques, search techniques for the data, and even the query processing also efficient. Means if you want to retrieve a particular data, so that can be retrieved efficiently, right? So this is another advantage of using the today's database management systems. So the next advantage of using the database management system is providing the backup and recovery services. Yes, today's database systems are providing the backup and recovery services. See, the DBMS software must provide the facilities for recovering from the hardware and even the software failures. Hardware and software failures. In the sense what? See, the backup and recovery subsystems of this, they are responsible for the recovery. Okay, the backup and recovery subsystems are there. Those subsystems which are incorporated into the database management system, they are basically responsible for the recovery of the data. See, for example, if the computer system fails in the middle of the complex update transaction, okay, if the system fails in between the any transaction, if we are doing any transaction, say update transaction, and our computer system fails in between, okay, then the recovery subsystem is responsible for making sure that the database is restored to the state it was before the transactions started executing, or alternatively, the recovery subsystem could ensure that the transaction is resumed from the point at which it was interrupted, so that its full effects, its full effect is recorded in the database and that transaction is completed. Okay, so in the sense what, it's not that we can completely rely on even any hardware or software. It's not like that. See, even we are human beings, we don't have any guarantee. Today I am alive, I don't know tomorrow whether I will be there or no. When we are not able to rely on any human being, then how can we rely on a machine or say software? 100% not, we can't rely, but up to some extent we can rely on those softwares or hardwares, right? Okay, but even after some time, what happens? The failures takes place, right? So hardware failure may occur, or say even the software failure also may occur. So at that time, if you are doing any transactions, say I'll take an example of our online transaction. Whenever we are transferring money, we all use the Google Pay, say Phone Pay, like these type of apps, right? So those apps are associated with the particular bank's databases. Some part of the database will be shared with those apps, so that we are able to perform those operations. Now I'm transferring the money, say around 5,000 rupees I'm transferring from my account to your account. Now that at that point, money will not be delivered. Some problem is there, say server is busy or server is unavailable, this type of messages we get, right? So there is a problem with software. Maybe there may be a problem with software, or there may be a huge traffic at that server, or there may be some failure in the hardware at that point of time when I was transferring the money, right? So what about the money? At that point it's not happening. So what about the money, whether it will be transferred to the account or whether it will be stored back to my account again? So that's an issue, right? So that issue will be solved by the systems itself, softwares itself. That depends. uh, Either of those cases will take place, means either the money will be transferred to the account, transferred to the person's account for which you have initialized it, for which we have started executing that transaction. Either the process will complete, or money will not be transferred to the person's account for whom you are transferring, and the money will again restored back in your account. Before starting the transaction, how much amount you had in your account, the same amount again you will get back in your account, right? So means that is means what, even after the failure of the services, hardware, it may be hardware or it may be software, your data will be recovered. Your data will be recovered, nothing will happen to your database, and even the backup will take place. See, few years back there was an issue that something would happen with the Facebook database, and some crashes had happened, some disks were collapsed there. But what about the data? Today we are all able to get our data, right? So those database systems are having the mechanism to recover the data by keeping the backup of the data. So they will use a kind of mechanism, it depends upon them. So they will use some type of mechanisms to back up the data, and if failure occurs, so backup mechanisms will using the backup and recovery subsystem, those mechanisms will be executed, and your data will be again restored, and you will be having the backup again, you will get those data back. So today's DBMS systems are providing the backup and recovery services. Okay, then next is providing multiple users interfaces to different class of users. So providing multiple interfaces to different class of users. So what does mean by providing multiple interfaces? See, there are different types of interfaces are there. If I'm a technical person, I know how to query the database. So because I have a knowledge regarding SQL language, so I can directly use the software and I can give my query to the system because I have a knowledge, right? But there are people who don't know this, because all are not good in the technicals, and they are not meant for it, right? So they may interact with the database using the form interface. See, scholarship forms we all fill. As students, we all fill the scholarship form, right? So how do you interact with that scholarship website? We all use their form interface, right? some menus will be there, or you will get the form there. Drop down buttons will be there. You need to fill the form. Just you need to enter the form there, and your data will be stored in your database of that particular scholarship website. Now there are again different classes of people, those who don't know how to fill also the form also. For them we may give the pictures there, and they may just click on the pictures, and they can give their input there. Okay, and that will be stored in the database. So nowadays we are having the say games are there, right? So many online games are there. If you want to play the games, even after playing the game, or in between, you will get the scores, the points, all those things will be shown for you. So all those things will be stored in the database of that particular game. But how are you interacting with them? You are not entering there the points. So how are you interacting with that software? That is by using the graphical user interface, right? So what we can say is, because the many different types of users with varying levels of technical knowledge, they use the databases. Okay, so a database should provide a variety of interfaces in this case. So these include, it may be a query language for casual users, then programming language interfaces for even the application programmers, and forms and command codes for parametric users. That is the Canet transactions, the people who use the Canet transactions. And the menu driven interfaces can be there, even the natural language interfaces for the standalone users or say browsers. Okay, so both form style interfaces and menu driven interfaces are usually they are commonly known as graphical user interfaces. And many specialized languages and even the environments exist there for specifying the GUIs and capabilities for providing even the web GUIs, web graphical interfaces to the database, or web enabling databases are also there. Okay, so depending upon the type of users that they are using the database or interacting with the database, now today's databases are able to provide the interfaces for the different classes of users. They are able to provide the interfaces for different classes of users. The next advantage of using the database is, wait, okay, the representing complex relationships among the data. See, we have taken example in the second video of this unit, that is the university database was there, right? So there, one student information was there in more than one relation, that is more than one table. So if you want to collect the all the data regarding one table, then what we need to do, we need to go to each and every table. So it's not possible, right? So there we need to establish the relationships among those different tables, and then we can get the data. So today's DBMS systems are making us so easy, all the facilities in such a way that we can relate each and every relation, that is the tables of the database, with each other. And however complex may be our data, so almost data we are able to store it in the databases today. Okay, and we are able to establish the relationship among the different types of data, though it's a complex data. Now the next one is enforcing the integrity constraints on the databases. See, most database applications, they are having this certain integrity constraints that must and should hold for the particular data. Okay, today's DBMS should provide the capabilities for defining and enforcing these constraints. the simplest type of constraint type which involves specifying data type for each data item. Okay, now see, in the university database we have specified that the value of the data item within each student record must be a one digit integer for the particular class. For the particular class column, the value should be only one integer, means class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, like that. Okay, and even the name, for name also we had given there a constraint in the sense here the condition, that is we had mentioned it there 30. Okay, it should be maximum 30 characters only, it should not exceed that 30 characters. So such type of restrictions can apply, that is the constraints we can apply on the data. And not only it's only this much, even the range of values that we can store, even on the range of values that we are storing on the we are storing in particular column, that can also be restricted. See, for the class, for the semesters, how many semesters you are having for BCA? 6. So only out of those 6 values can be entered, either 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 or 6. So the student is not allowed to enter the 7 as a semester name, because that semester itself is not there, so he is not allowed to enter that value. So even we can enforce such conditions. And along with that, another the main important condition is with respect to the key fields. See, each and every student is given the unique registration number with associated with your universities, right? So each and every student is having the unique registration number. No two students can have the same registration number. So when we are creating the database for the registration number column, there only we can mention it as a key, means it cannot accept the duplicate numbers there. I also cannot have the same registration number, and even you also cannot have the same registration number. Each and every student in the university will be having the unique registration number, that is the unique value associated with that particular registration number column. So that is also another type of constraint or conditions. So like this only, there will be a different kind of condition. Suppose, say, if you don't want to leave any column as empty and you want to make it as a compulsory, so yes, so their data has to be entered, otherwise the database will not accept it. See, I can take the example of scholarship forms, okay, or any college forms when you are filling. So there is Aadhaar number is compulsory scholarship forms, and even some details are mandatory. The college names, your fee structures, all are mandatory. Mandatory in the sense you can't leave them as a blank. You can't leave them as a blank. There you have to enter the data compulsorily. So such type of constraints or say conditions we can apply on the databases. So in this video, what we saw the different advantages of using the databases. First advantage is the controlling redundancy, in the sense controlling the duplicacy of the data, and maintaining the databases, in the sense maintaining the consistency of the data wherever the data regarding particular entity is there. Consistency is maintained, right? Logical consistency is maintained between the data, among the datas. And today's databases are able to share the data among multiple users based upon the conditions. So the databases are able to share among the multiple users, and even we can put the restrictions on the access of the data, that is restricting the unauthorized access to data. If I'm not authorized to access the data, okay, then I can't access the data. If I am authorized, then only I can access it. If I am given the permission, then only I can access that database. So that is also another advantages of the today's databases. And yes, today's databases are able to provide the persistent storage for the program objects, means once you create the database, yes, you can permanently store them on particular storage disks, and even they are using the particular storage structures uh, using which searching is easy. And yes, there are so many different query processings which are efficiently working on processing the queries which are fired by the users, or say which are fired by the programmers. And yes, even today's database systems are having the recovery services. Even some that is something goes wrong with hardwares or softwares, when we are doing one transaction, in between it stops because of hardware or software failures. So we are having the backup facility there, so we can have the backup and recovery subsystems associated with the database management system environment. Those systems will again recover the data and they will give us back our data. And today's database management systems are providing multiple interfaces, so there are different categories of users are there. Some people may be good at querying, some people may using the programming languages. So we have seen in the last video different types of users: parametric users, end users, sophisticated users, developers, or the designers, right? So all of them are having the different levels of different technical levels of uh, different technical levels, right? So for all the different users, today's databases are giving the different interfaces to interact with the database. And even we can represent the complex data and the relationship among them in our databases. And we are able to enforce integrity constraints, in the sense integrity conditions. Okay, we are able to enforce so many different conditions depending upon the type of data that we want to store. Like for particular columns we can't have the duplicate values, say registration numbers cannot be duplicate, right? So such constraints or conditions also we can apply on the data basis. Okay, so that's it regarding the advantages of using the today's database management systems.